Hello, Code 19 India community. It's wonderful to have you here live now. With us is Gaurav Aggarwal from 1MG. He's the co-founder and CTO of 1MG. Hi, Gaurav. Nice having
Hi,
you on the show. Thank you very much for taking your time.
my pleasure to
Um,
be.
how are you doing and how's your family doing? How are you guys doing currently?
We are surviving. I think we started the lockdown a week ahead of the government declaring a lockdown. So 1MG, given that we are in health, we actually got ahead of the curve and we got everyone set up to work from home. So we started working from home a week ahead. So we are now in our fourth week of the lockdown already. It's a little disorienting, but I think so far we managed to stay okay. The tough part is that in Gurgaon, where we live, it's not even allowed to leave our apartments and go down for walks and stuff. Just from a safety perspective. So I think that's the part that's really tough. But we're making slight adjustments and getting along. So we are doing picnics in our balcony and spending time outdoors. So in the balcony as much as we can. So coping up, yeah, surviving.
Great, great. Good hearing that, and I'm glad you're doing all safe and well.
Yeah.
Um, can you explain us briefly what is 1MG and your services once more for the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, 1MG was founded with a very, very simple goal, which was that for a patient to get better, they basically needed access to three things. First was information. The second was service and product availability wherever they were. And the last was quality services at affordable prices. And so 1MG basically endeavored to bring all core healthcare services like pharmacy information, pharmacy, diagnostics, and consultations all together on one platform. So today, 1MG is India's largest integrated healthcare platform. Last year, we had 92 million people come to 1MG for information and other uh, transactional needs. We service millions of customers every year for pharmacy, medicine delivery at home, diagnostic tests at home. So when you book a diagnostic test, you can get it done by any player, like an SRL, a Lal
Mhm.
Path Lab, a Thyrocare, whatever. There's a 1MG phlebotomist who comes to your home, collects your sample like blood, urine, stool sample, etc., and then takes it in a barcoded, verifiable fashion to the diagnostic lab that you booked the test with. And once that is done, then the reports come online. So we are basically enabling outpatient transactions like pharmacy, diagnostics, consultations, all through one platform, generating a lot of healthcare data along the way, and then building very, very interesting models on top of it. So to give you an example, we just published a paper on an AI doctor assistant. So our assistant basically triages a patient's healthcare problems and then can give a response to the doctor and help them diagnose a patient's condition much more quickly. And we found that this is very, very accurate. So that's something that we just published a paper on in a leading science journal. Additionally, we work on models like disease progression, etc. We also work with a lot of hospitals and pharmaceutical companies in the ecosystem. So net 1MG is a fairly integrated healthcare service platform for the country.
Lovely, lovely. That actually already explains half away my next question, which I would have. As being an innovative player in the healthcare industry, what kind of impacts do you have now during the pandemic situation?
Look, we are trying to help across the board in every single way that we can. So, of course, one of the most straightforward ways to help is to make sure that as people are locked down, they can get access to their medicines, they can get their tests done, etc. So, for medicines, we are working very, very closely with both the local authorities and the central authorities to make sure that there are no issues that we face in supply chain, etc. In fact, 1MG and online pharmacies in general have been designated essential services. So there's a lot of help and support accessible to make sure that our services stay available to everyone. That's one. Secondly, on the diagnostics front, we are basically making sure that our fleet is available. Our folks, trained technicians who go home to collect your samples, they can continue to do so in a safe fashion. we have staffed and made more teleconsult services available, so that even when you can't go see a doctor offline, you can actually get quality healthcare services or quality doctor consultation services online. We are doing a lot of work on enabling, RT-PCR testing in the country as well. So we are already tied up with labs, making sure home sample collections become a possibility for COVID-19 suspect patients. We're doing some other work on potentially enabling large-scale sample collections should the need be, and yeah, across the board, we're just doing whatever we can. We're building risk screeners, etc.
Amazing. I can see it. So it's actually a positive direction you are going into. The COVID-19 situation has helped you, because we'll have an interview tomorrow with Manish from Yatra. It's very clear his business is going down. Has this helped the situation now? I mean, has it helped the business also, if we just look at it once from that side?
Look, I think yes. So if you look at it from a demand perspective, because the offline ecosystem is affected, we are seeing off the charts demand at this point. But at the same time, we're also facing supply chain, to some extent, supply chain disruption because of the lockdowns, containment zones, etc. So yes, there's strong demand, of course, with the caveat that there's some disruption that has happened in the ecosystem as well. So yeah, overall for the business is quite positive right now. But that said, we are doing everything we can to make sure that we can do our portion and bring normalcy back as soon as possible.
Now, since we are talking about the industry, a bit in the industry, I would like to take up a question, if possible, which Pooja Rai has posed here. I'll put it in here. She's saying, very curious to learn from your insights, Gaurav, on what are the different healthcare companies doing for the safety of doctors from COVID-19.
Yeah, so look, I think the biggest, so there are two things to ensure the safety of doctors. The first is to make sure that they have enough personal protective equipment, which is PPE, and the second is to make sure that doctors get tested at a regular frequency, etc. So while 1mg doesn't interact with doctors on a day-to-day basis, there's a lot of we work with healthcare professionals who, let's say, go to your homes and collect samples, etc. There's a lot of work that we are doing on ensuring that people have PPE access wherever they go, whenever they come in contact with patients. There's very detailed SOPs that ICMR has published and that companies are following to make sure that folks have access to, and that steps are being followed. Doctors are being tested. There's funds that are being put together to make sure that funds can be collected and protective equipment, if needed, can be availed and can be made available to doctors. So across the board, everything that can be done to ensure safety of doctors is being done, and more steps are being taken.
Now, you were just telling me before you were on the call with the government, you are a lot in touch with them. I mean, what kind of regulatory challenges did you face, and how did you overcome them, and how are they now happy about you? What kind of an impact do you have now? So in general is the question, and now in this situation with regulatory challenges here.
Yeah, so look, healthcare, as we all know, across the world is a heavily regulated field, because you're actually providing products and services that can potentially affect a person's health, and in extreme actually can affect their life or death, right? And so as a natural consequence of this, healthcare is a very, very regulated field. And even in India, there are significant regulations around consultations, medicine deliveries, etc. And a lot of our laws, for instance, were written a long time ago. That said, we didn't face a lot of challenges from the regulatory front, because 1mg is a marketplace. That's how most of the companies operate in India, especially those that are venture funded. And we are covered as an intermediary by the IT Act, and then the vendor pharmacies that we work with are actually licensed premises that have a Drugs and Cosmetics Act license, and so they're actually allowed to dispense medications to customers. And 1mg just plays the part of an intermediary. That said, from time to time, we've had to educate everyone in the administration around what are the benefits of, let's say,
Mm.
an online pharmacy ecosystem. How does it actually make higher quality drugs available in a more trustworthy fashion, in an authenticated fashion to consumers, typically by reducing the cost of supply chain and making the supply chain more efficient. So those are the standard education principles that we've had to work on. I would say that so far things have been reasonably smooth from a regulatory standpoint. And in some ways, 1MG has also taken a fairly leadership position in ensuring that future forward regulations can be proposed and can actually be enacted to bring some of these things more to the fore and more to the front and center.
Okay, great. And you just touched base supply chain actually, and that was also one question which came up before
Yeah.
in the mentors meeting I had. How do you generally handle the challenges in logistics and inventories with the local pharmacies?
Yeah, those are actually those are actually tough problems. So one of the issues in India is that we just have too many pharmacies. There's around 1 million of them, and they're all small mom and pop stores, which typically have a lot of supply chain fragmentation issues. So one of the things that 1MG does is through software and technology, we try to aggregate demand, and we also try to aggregate supply in the backend. One of the core challenges we run there is that the amount of software penetration in the backend supply chain is not that advanced. Like unlike, let's say, a US, etc., we don't have really high quality SME software that pharmacy retail shops run. And what that leads to is that supply information, etc., is not always accurate. Um, Vendors may actually show more supply to get more demand, and that leads to poor, service levels for customers. So a lot of work that 1MG has done over the last few years is to figure out these smart algorithms which can estimate your supply levels based on what you have fulfilled in the past. They kind of figure out what is the SLA that you can meet based on what you have met in the past. So there's a fair amount of intelligence that is built in the system, which helps us combine all these demand points, supply points in the back.
Great. We have so many questions going on, and we actually said 15 minutes. I do not know if we can bring in some more time, if we can stretch it a bit. I see there's a lot of interaction that is growing. I'll bring in a question from Praveen Kumar. Sir, what are your views on remote monitoring of patients and the expected growth of IoT in the Indian healthcare?
Yeah, I think I honestly think it's a very, very interesting area, though it's very early at this point. And first, we have to understand why it's a very interesting area. And I think that the reason it's an interesting area is because India has a perennial sort of India has a lack of enough qualified healthcare professionals. If you go by, let's say, what the WHO defines as standards for an economy of our size, as a result, what happens is that, to give you a very simple example, let's say you want to go get an EKG done, then in a small town or in a rural area, you may not have a qualified person who can actually look at that EKG and give you like quality advice, right? So right there you have the scope of an IoT device where, let's say, there's a local entrepreneur in the village who basically gets a high quality EKG device, and remotely the data can be shipped off to a qualified doctor who can look at it and basically give advice. So I think it's very interesting. From EKG, you can go to, let's say, auscultation, where someone can use a remote stethoscope. You can go and think of things like bronchitis, etc. A lot of people in India have COPD issues, and if you could have a stethoscope which could be remotely monitoring, you could have patients who are, let's say, bedridden at home. You could have devices, low-cost devices, who could actually monitor their vitals and share information back. So I think there's a huge potential. The biggest problem in Indian healthcare is who's going to pay for these services, because of a lack of insurance network, especially for non-hospitalization cases, typically the burden of payment falls on the consumer, and we don't see a lot of these services take off. Now, because of potentially the Ayushman Bharat scheme and the National Health Authority, it's possible that more and more consumers are going to get affordable insurance, and some of these services will actually take off and may actually take off. So fairly early, but very, very interesting, and probably is going to happen in the next 5 years' time.
Okay, great. You let us know how many minutes you can give us more in your
I can,
precious
I
time these
can,
days.
I can go on. I can go on for another 5 10
Okay.
minutes.
Okay, great. So then I will give you from my side or from our side, which we collected, two questions, and then we'll go back to the
Yep.
community. The one thing is, what are your HR policies at the moment, and what will the new workplace look like once with social distancing post lockdown? Is this even a topic at the moment?
No, definitely, it's a topic at the moment. I think one thing that the lockdown has made abundantly clear to us is that we can operate fairly efficiently as a remote working organization. For the last 4 weeks, our teams have been working remotely, more or less, and we still haven't seen any signs of efficiency drop. I think there's some fatigue because people, we are after all social beings, and people miss contact with
Right.
each other. But the efficiency of the team has been great. So I think the first takeaway for us has been that maybe we can take bigger, we can operate as a remote company at least to some extent. So I think that's a very good realization. The second is that look, the economy, more signals that I'm getting, the more it's becoming clear across the world the economy is going to be in the dumps for some time to come. I do think it's going to recover like it has every single time, but I do think it's going to take time. So that's something that we are trying to prepare for. We don't know, we don't have concrete plans yet, but we are in the process of making them.
Now, speaking about the economy going in a dump, so a lot of employees are announcing leaves or cutting salaries.
Yeah.
What do you recommend to such people being directly affected of such measures? It's a
Look,
tough
it's
question, I know.
Yeah, it's always a hard thing. It's an extremely hard thing, but maybe I can share my experience. I graduated in 2001. This was right after the dot-com bust in the US. When I graduated, I had a job. I had a job in the US that I was waiting for a visa for to join, and then I had an interim job in India. Within 1 month of my India job, I got laid off, and that was the first shock that I got, that there is a reality, and that when businesses don't do well, you may get laid off. And then even when I landed in the US, my company was actually very kind because they had done layoffs as well, and they didn't rescind my offer, but the position that I was hired for was no longer available. So for a year, I worked on something which was not in my interest area, and I just kept my head down and learned whatever I could. So my simple feedback would be that these things happen. They are cyclical. Tough times come. Tough economies, recessions happen. Rather than get the focus should be on surviving. Every opportunity, every tough time teaches you something. So learn whatever you can, whichever way you can. And I'm sure everyone who learns will be better equipped once things get better again. So learn to take it in your stride. Don't get too worked up. If companies are offering pay cuts, I think that's okay. It's like our prime minister said, it's about survival, and then we focus on revival. So survive, and then I'm sure we will all revive. So don't take it too hard. We'll all do fine in the long run.
Okay, great, great. Rahul, Gaurav, I'm giving you 1 minute or a few seconds to go through the questions while I will just give an intermezzo and talk about a bit of the hackathon, and while you can go through them and you can choose how many you want and which ones, and then we'll go through
Yeah.
that. Dear community, the deadline is tomorrow at 9 o'clock. What is going to happen after that? I just want to tell you. We're going to have a judging period where we have a judge panel of Asha Jadeja Motwani from the foundation, then me and Gaurav, who we just speaking now, then Praveen from the director of NID in Ahmedabad, Vishal Gondal from Goki, Bebaf from Fab Hotels, and many more. And tomorrow we will be speaking at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with Manish Amen. He's the co-founder and CIO of Yatra. So I hope you will be back, and you will also bring up more questions. It's a very interesting time to interact with them. They are sitting at home, and they have spared their time despite being really busy and trying to manage everything from home with their family, of course, and kids running around and all that. But I really appreciate their time, and I think um, all the interactions we can have with you shows only the respect we can give them to. So now we'll go back to Gaurav and try to see which questions would you like to address to and answer.
There's a lot of questions. I think I'll address one which is the easiest, which is does 1MG use ML models to make business smooth? Yeah, we actually use machine learning and artificial intelligence pretty much in every aspect of our business. We use it. We actually built something very cool, which we are going to write another paper on, which can actually read doctors' handwritings and figure out medicine names and stuff from there. That is a part of our business process automation initiative. We use machine learning for predicting when your packet will reach you. We use machine learning to actually do recommendations and personalization. So we use it across the board in almost every aspect of our business. We have a very, very strong machine learning team. So very proud of the work we do there.
Thank you very much. I think it was great having you on the show, and I hope the community could really gain from your insights. I wish you all the best and your family too. And thank you for taking your time and for being here. Take care.
All the best for the hackathon to
Thank
everyone.
You.
Thank you. Bye.